NTV Uganda recently aired a story on decriminalizing abortion in Uganda, and there was quite a bit of misinformation or disinformation that needs to be debunked. Let's get right into it.
A 2010 report from the Ministry of Health indicated that death due to unsafe abortion is rising annually. The report estimated that unsafe abortion accounted for 8% of maternal deaths.
Okay, right off the bat, we need to debunk the concept of an unsafe abortion. What even does that mean? According to our Ministry of Health and the World Health Organization, unsafe abortions are those that are done by unskilled professionals or in unhygienic places. So according to these organizations, if an abortion clinic employs skilled workers or abortionists and has a very hygienic place, then it's a safe abortion. But that doesn't make any sense, because in every single abortion, a child dies. In every single one of them, 100% of the time, a child is going to die. So who exactly is it safe for? Of course, they'll say that it's safe for the mother. What about the baby? What about the life that was already growing on the inside of that mother before that abortion was carried out? Because when a woman is pregnant, there are two lives involved. So it obviously begs the question, who exactly is the abortion safe for? Because even in those safe abortions, the woman is going to live with some consequences. Even in developed countries like the USA, where organizations like Planned Parenthood, which operates in Uganda as International Planned Parenthood Federation with its various affiliates in Uganda, messes up abortions. They are the champions of safe abortions, but there are several stories of women undergoing botched abortions in these places, and these are the heralds of safe abortion. You know, they have the skilled workers and they have the hygienic abortion clinics.
Uganda has established laws concerning this issue, and according to the 1995 Constitution, which permits abortion to save a woman's life.
Okay, so this right here is just an absolute lie. Either it's sheer ignorance or deliberate misinformation about what the laws of Uganda state. The 1995 Constitution does not permit abortion to save the life of the mother. It rather states that no one has the right to terminate the life of the unborn child in Uganda, except where the law authorizes it, and mentions nothing about the life of the mother. However, the Penal Code Act, on the other hand, does raise a certain exception which can be interpreted to mean that when the life of the mother is in danger, then an abortion is permitted. If that is the judicial interpretation of that section, I personally completely and totally disagree with it, because based on the data and what actually happens on ground in medical institutions, abortions are not carried out to save the life of the mother. And several doctors have come out to say that intentional terminating or intentional killing of the life of the unborn child is completely unnecessary to save the life of a mother.
It is often said that abortion is sometimes medically necessary to protect the life or the health of the mother. This is simply not true. As a neonatologist, I am regularly consulted to advise mothers with high-risk pregnancies, and I routinely care for their babies. I have also personally gone through 2 very difficult pregnancies, each requiring hospitalization. So I have great empathy and respect for all women who are pregnant, especially those with difficult or high-risk pregnancies. What women deserve to know, however, is that even in the most high-risk pregnancies, there is no medical reason why the life of the child must be directly and intentionally ended with an abortion procedure. In situations where the mother's life is truly in jeopardy, her pregnancy must end and the baby must be delivered. These situations occur in cases of mothers who develop dangerously high blood pressure, have decompensating heart disease, life-threatening diabetes, cancer, or a number of other very serious medical conditions. Some babies do need to be delivered before they are able to survive outside of the womb, which occurs around 22 to 24 weeks of life. These situations are considered a preterm delivery and not an abortion.
Furthermore, the 2012 National Policy Guidelines and Service Standards for Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights accept abortion under circumstances such as fetal anomalies, rape, incest, among others. However, the interpretation of the existing laws and policies on abortion is inconsistent among law enforcement and the judicial system, making it challenging for women and medical professionals to know when abortion is legally permitted.
These guidelines bring up their own exceptions that are not included in the Constitution or the Penal Code Act, which in my opinion renders them unconstitutional. To say that because a child was conceived in rape or because a child has a disability, then they do not have the right to life is a direct contravention of Article 22, which reaffirms the sanctity of the human life of an unborn child. What kind of message does that put across to people walking amongst us that have been conceived in rape and have disabilities? We are telling them that their life does not matter just because they were not conceived in love, or that they were somewhat unfortunate enough to be born with a disability. This is not the spirit of the 1995 Constitution. The right to life is an inherent right, not granted to us by the state, but is inherent by virtue of being a human being.
Patrick Buchina, an advocate of the High Court, says there is no clear distinction between the roles of a healthcare provider and law enforcement regarding the determination of when an abortion is warranted.
Section 207 in particular of the Penal Code Act, it creates a lacuna in the law, in that the courts have to come up to interpret and determine what we mean by the state of the patient at the time. Does the state of the patient extend to the mental state of the patient at that time? Because we are well aware that there are circumstances where patients are raped.
What this lawyer brings up is actually a very recycled argument that pro-aborts like to bring up to try to enlarge the extent to which the exception applies. While I do agree that the Penal Code Act does not elaborate on what exactly they mean by the state of the mother at the time when this doctor is performing the surgical operation, it cannot and should not be interpreted widely to include the mental state of the mother. Because when you think critically about that argument, what are they trying to say? That if I'm pregnant at this point of time, or if I am raped, and I'm obviously undergoing the trauma of that rape, does that justify having the child that I am carrying killed? No. And I know that is a very controversial statement to say, but the mental health of the mother does not trump over the life or the right to life of the unborn child. It's a basic concept of legal interpretation or of constitutional interpretation. The right that I have cannot be interpreted in such to trump over the right of another. My right to a clear mind or a clear mental state should not trump over the right of this innocent child who also, in the case of rape, did not ask to be conceived.
The Supreme Court Judge, Lady Justice Lilian Tivatemwa, says the laws particularly impact vulnerable communities, including young girls.
But the law goes on to say it can also be out of distress, fear of disgrace, panic, and so on. And I would say that in reality, perhaps these are often the feelings of many young unmarried mothers. Can we pick a leaf from the days?
I totally agree with Her Lordship, Justice Tivatemwa, that many times the fear-mongering by friends, family, parents towards women and girls that are faced with unplanned pregnancies is what drives them to have these abortions. They're already obviously going through a period of stress, distress, like she calls it, and they do not need someone to tell them that, oh, okay, you know what, go and kill that child. You can't have that child. Your life will be over. You will never succeed because you brought a child into this world at this time. You will never achieve your dreams. It is that kind of rhetoric by parents and people in authority towards these girls facing unplanned pregnancies that is driving them to commit abortions. Perhaps if we approached these people with love and care that they need, then we would reduce the number of abortions already happening in this nation, and at the same time reduce the number of casualties that are a result of these abortions.
At a recent conference for advocates, healthcare practitioners and human rights activists, Winnie Byanyima, the executive director of UNAIDS, stated that the current laws on reproductive health continue to disadvantage women.
For them to know this and own this as their own agenda, not a Western agenda, not an agenda being funded by foreigners, we have to reach them. And it's you who must frame a language around this. Don't just be concentrated on the language for the parliamentary place where the law will be struck out. Frame also the language for the ordinary woman to know that I have a right to decide.
Well, I obviously totally disagree with everything Winnie Byanyima stated here. First of all, this is very much so a Western-funded movement. Yes, while there are some Ugandans that believe in the philosophy of pro-abortion or my body, my choice, we cannot deny the fact that there are several pro-abortion organizations operating in Uganda, fully funded by Western pro-abortion organizations. We have the likes of Reproductive Health Uganda, that is an affiliate of International Planned Parenthood Federation, an organization that brags about being the biggest abortion provider. So we cannot deny that there is a lot of Western influence in the pro-abortion movement in Uganda. She also says that they should frame the law for the ordinary woman to know that they have a right to decide. No woman has a right to decide to kill their child. I would like to presume that is exactly what she was meaning, because that fits right into the rhetoric of a woman has a right to choose, a right to decide what to do with her own body. Yes, I'm a woman and I have full autonomy over my body. But the moment I conceive a child, another life has come into play. Another body is living on the inside of my body with full rights by virtue of it being a human being. And therefore, I immediately relinquish any right to kill them.
Medical professionals stress that those affected in legal abortion require palliative care rather than interrogation to avoid forcing them into silence.
Others get so many complications that their walls of the uterus actually get damaged. So if they ever get pregnant, it's not able to hold this baby again. So this actually also is a challenge when a woman later gets married in life.
So this is true. Of course, in many botched abortions, because the abortionist is sticking his tools inside the womb and, pulling the baby apart piece by piece. Sometimes they tug on something that is not the baby's body part, and they tug on the walls of the woman's uterus, causing all kinds of problems that this doctor mentioned. And of course, women who undergo this need to get the proper health care and treatment.
I agree with the proposal that imprisonment is not the best option, because you imprison a child who is probably 16 for attempting an abortion, or you imprison a child of 14 who has dumped a child in a pit latrine. We must really have empathy and understand the context of these so-called crimes.
Okay, so I totally agree with Honorable Norbert Mao on this particular point that children, underage girls that undergo abortions should not be imprisoned for this. For one reason only. 100% of the time when a child undergoes an abortion, there's an adult involved. Imprison those adults that are involved. Many times it's a parent that has forced this child to undergo that abortion, or this child has walked to a pharmacy and bought abortion pills sold to them by an adult. They have entered an abortion clinic and undergone a surgical abortion performed by an adult. All of these are adults that are involved in this crime, not a so-called crime, but in this real crime that needs to be brought to book. The Penal Code Act has clearly laid out the consequences of people that are involved in this. For the child, they need to be given the right kind of counseling and care or therapy to help them go through this, to help them understand that they are carrying a child, they are carrying another life on the inside of them. And that, of course, their world has changed, but that does not mean that their life has ended. Where I do have to push back on, though, is when Honorable Mao says that these are so-called crimes. Respectfully, sir, these are not so-called crimes. These are real crimes. This is what the unborn child has to go through in every single abortion. In a chemical abortion, this is what they go through. In a surgical abortion, this is what they go through. These are real crimes, and these are real human beings that are being torn apart in the womb daily.
He also questioned why the abortion law solely targets women while neglecting men who are often complicit in this situation.
Why do the men who father these children not get mentioned? It is as if the law only focuses on the women.
This is really misinformation from Honorable Mao. The law does not only target the women. In fact, the specific language used in the Penal Code Act is any person who procures an abortion, any person who administers this and this, not any woman or any girl. I'm really not sure where he got the idea that the law specifically targets the women, but the law is clear. It targets the woman and the man, that any woman or any man that is involved in procuring these abortions. We at Maisha Mawili, alongside other pro-life and anti-abortion people in Uganda, have really been trying to blow the horn on the repetitive and constant attempt by pro-abortionists all over the world to legalize abortion in Uganda. And this news piece by NTV is very evident of that. This conference that they report on, in the background, you can see all the pro-abortion organizations that are heavily involved in attempting to legalize abortion in Uganda. This is a call for all Ugandans to stand firmly against any and every attempt to decriminalize abortion in Uganda. The unborn child is the most vulnerable human being on this earth, totally and wholly dependent on her mother and fully deserving of a right to life.